Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Azaria, and today I am going to be starting. I need to look at the actual camera, not myself. So I am starting a new series on my channel called the True Crimes series. I know a lot of YouTubers doing this at the moment, but I'm doing my own kind of take on this where I start off with Australian only crimes. So I'm so excited. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I'm so glad that I'm sitting down with you guys and I am ready to go. This case especially is one of my favorites, so I can't wait to get stuck into it. But before I do, I just want to talk about where I have been hiding for the past few months. So if you guys don't want to know where I've been, you don't really care about that, you just want to get into the case, then skip to, I'll have a little like number that you can skip to up here so you can. But yeah, if you do care about me, then just keep watching. Recently I have been MIA. Just had a lot of technical difficulties, plus I've had a few personal issues that have come up. So apart from that, I'm back and I'm ready. I'm so happy, you guys. I've got the MacBook, it's ready to go. I've got my camera, it's out, and I'm filming. I was so uninspired for such a long time, and I've been watching all of Eleanor Neal's. She's my like inspiration as to why I'm starting this series. I've watched them all now. Basically, I wanted to start this series on my channel because I have forever been interested in criminology, and this is something that I really wanted to personally pursue for my YouTube channel, and I hope you guys enjoy it. This case, however, has always intrigued me. I just want to point out by saying my little disclaimer, I don't in any way, shape or form intend to insult any family members of the victim. This is just literally my own research that I have put into my own words, and I am sitting here and making a video out of it. So if you guys like true crime videos, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, make us get to like 200 subscribers by the end of this. let's make that a goal. If we can, then I will upload my next video faster, but if we can't, that's cool. I'll still upload it. It's whatever. If you guys want to see the Azaria Chamberlain case, then please just keep on watching and let's get into it. I'm just going to talk about the parents before I get onto the actual night of what happened when Azaria disappeared. She was only alive for 9 weeks, so we don't really have much to talk about in terms of her life, unfortunately. I'm just going to briefly overview her parents. Lindy and Michael Chamberlain had both met in Tasmania. They had met through the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I believe. Lindy's father was a pastor for it. Michael later became a pastor, so they were very highly involved in their religious activities. They were married in 1969 and they lived in Tasmania. That's where they had their firstborn child, Aiden, and they lived there for 5 years. After those years, they moved to northern Queensland, where they further had Regan, which was their second born son, and then later in 1980 they moved to Mount Isa and they had Azaria. Lindy was a dressmaker. She made lots of wedding dresses and that was her profession, whilst also being the pastor's wife. As I said before, Michael was the pastor of the Mount Isa Seventh-day Adventist Church, so again, they took their religion real serious. So 2 months after the birth of Azaria, the Chamberlains decided to pack everything up in their car and go on a holiday. They wanted to explore the Northern Territory. They wanted to see Alice Springs. They wanted to see Ayers Rock. If you guys don't know what Ayers Rock is, it's basically a massive rock. And the cool thing about it is that it is said to be 863 meters high in its elevation and 550 million years old. Is that even, can that even be real? Like, I don't know too much about science, but that's how long they believe that it started forming from. That's crazy. It's also a very sacred site towards the Aboriginal people. It holds a lot of stories and it's just a very important cultural site to them. They arrived on the 16th of August in 1980. Michael took a camera with him and he took lots of photos from the trip, so I'll insert some of the photos here. They pitched up a tent at a campsite nearby the rock, and in this campsite there were 6 different families. So there was the Wests, the Dawsons, the Habbys, the Lows, and the Whitakers. On the night that it had happened, there was a barbecue area about 25 meters away from the tent. It would have been around 8 p.m. when Michael was starting to prepare some food for him and Lindy, whilst Lindy was trying to get the kids to sleep. Aiden, being the oldest, probably didn't want to sleep as much as the little ones did, so he kind of just hung around. He was either with his dad or with his mum throughout the time being, and Regan was already gone. He was fast asleep in his tent already. His mum had already put him down. She was just, you know, carrying Azaria around, trying to get Azaria to sleep. She was actually talking to Mr. and Mrs. Lowe at the time, and Azaria was said to have been wearing a jumpsuit and a little matinee coat, and I think other things, but I'm not too sure what they are. I'm so sorry. Eventually Azaria had fallen asleep, so Lindy went back to the tent to put her back into her bassinet. She had placed the bassinet near the end of the tent, so she would have been right where the opening of it. And then as she was doing that, Aiden had come into the tent and said, like, I'm hungry. Lindy decided to go to the car, get a can of baked beans, and then head back towards the barbecue area. As Lindy and Michael were getting their meal ready, Mrs. Lowe thought that she could hear a baby crying, so Lindy was like, okay, I'll go check on Azaria. And then instincts had kicked in, and she said that it went from like a slight fast-paced walk to an actual sprint, because she had seen a dingo nearby and it had something in its mouth. She checked in the tent and the baby was gone, so she screamed, the dingo has got my baby. She ended up running towards where she could see the dingo had escaped to, and as she was running she was like, somebody get a torch, I need a torch, my baby's just been taken by a dingo.
I just yelled out, has anyone got a torch? The dingo's got my baby.
And the whole campsite ended up getting up. Michael and Mr. Lowe had actually run towards the direction of where she said the dingo had went, and Lindy had run back into the tent to just make sure 100% everything was okay. She said when she looked in the tent the second time, everything was a mess. There was just blankets everywhere, there was clothes everywhere, and she actually had to make sure that Regan was okay, because he was also in the tent at the time. Apparently he was playing dead whilst the dingo had been inside the tent. During the time of her looking in the tent, and Michael and Mr. Lowe running off to see if they could find the dingo, Ranger was called in, and he goes by the name of Derek Roth. He arrived at around 8:25 p.m. and then not too long after that, Constable Morris had arrived. Now remember that name, Constable Morris, because he comes into the story later on. They both arrive at the campsite. They organize a search party. It says up to approximately 300 people, and they just did a massive search. They searched up until 3 a.m. in the morning from the time that Azaria had disappeared. So that's absolutely crazy that people just looked for hours and hours on end trying to find this dingo or trying to find this baby. Looked north, west, east, everywhere around the tent. They searched in sand dunes, and they just completely searched the whole area. So Mr. Morris actually called in an Aboriginal tracker. These guys are like experts in knowing, they know their stuff, they're really good at it, and he had actually saw dog footprints like running on the sand. Mr. Habby actually followed the dog paw prints, but he could see that there was something that had been scraped halfway through the paw prints sometimes, so he feels like if the dingo had the baby, it was like kind of like a bit heavy, so it was weighing it down, or maybe he was going in to eat it. That sounds really gruesome, but yeah, that's what Mr. Habby thinks happened. I tried to get the name of the Aboriginal tracker. His name is Mr. Nui Minianteri. I'm sorry, I'm so bad at pronouncing names, I just can't. So we're just gonna call him Mr. Nui. He tracked a drag mark on the crest of a sand dune next to the east of the tent, and in his opinion, the tracks of the dingo, he said it walked as though it had some load on it, so it walked as if it was carrying something pretty heavy. And when I was tracking the dingo, I knew, or I thought, it was carrying the baby for sure. Blood was also found inside the tent, which later confirmed to be Azaria's. That is pretty much what happened on the very sad night of August 16th 1980 in Uluru. I do have a lot of evidence towards this case, but you can pretty much see straightforward. Everybody, now if you're sitting here watching this, you probably, if you don't know the case, or you do know, you probably still have an opinion on what you think happened. So I'm going to talk about evidence a little bit. Just remember, Azaria was wearing a jumpsuit, and then on top of the jumpsuit she was wearing a matinee. I think there's a photo of Lindy actually holding Azaria with like the matinee and the jumpsuit on, so I might just insert that one in first, and then I will later go on to talk about what happened when the clothing was found. This is a little bit of evidence towards it being a dingo that had taken the baby. Before Azaria's disappearance, there were a lot of reported attacks in the same area that dingoes had attacked children. So the ranger Derek Roth was actually interviewed on a radio station in 2012, which is 32 years after Azaria's disappearance, I might add. But he confirmed that these attacks were pretty vicious on the children. He said that there were even some children that had blood dripping from them from the attack. The interviewer had actually asked him if there was anything that was done to try to stop this. He wanted to cull the dingoes, which is basically where they limit the population of dingoes by killing them off. Nothing was actioned from that, nothing was done about that. There were a few like signs put up, other than that there was just nothing really done about it. A week later, Azaria's jumpsuit was found 4 kilometers away from the site where the tent was. And this was discovered by the family called the Goodwins, and as they were trying to explore the rock, they had come across something that looked like it didn't belong in the natural area, and they later confirmed that it was a bloody baby's jumpsuit. And they obviously contacted the police, and then Constable Morris had come and arrived, and Mr. Goodwin had said that he had picked up the jumpsuit, and that just basically means he tampered with evidence. But Constable Morris denies any claims of that ever happening, even though to this day Mr. Goodwin still says that 100% they took him to the campsite, he looked at Mr. Goodwin and he picked it up and was like, okay, well, I've really got to just check if this is actually Azaria's jumpsuit. There was hair that was found in the tent, and on the jumpsuit there was blood all over the jumpsuit. This is a photo of the jumpsuit if you guys are wondering what it looks like. So a lot of people had their own suspicions about the jumpsuit. It didn't have that many dog teeth marks in it, and Lindy said that's because she was wearing a matinee, wasn't just wearing the jumpsuit. Do what you will with that evidence. Another piece about the jumpsuit is that there were fragments of different plants inside the jumpsuit from it being dragged on the floor. Now, experts believe that the plants found inside the jumpsuit were plants that were from the start of where the tent was to where the jumpsuit was found. So there was absolutely no way that somebody could have, you know, just try to dispose or like try to bury the jumpsuit in any way, because it just wouldn't have that many like different sorts of plants in it. I mean, if that doesn't tell you the dingo did it, then I don't know what would. This was ruled as inconclusive, but there was apparently a dingo den only 30 meters from where the jumpsuit was found. So if Azaria was unfortunately taken by a dingo, the baby's body would have completely been chewed off by a whole lot of different dingoes. Coroner saw this as evidence to believe that a dingo did do it. So the Chamberlains were both ruled as not guilty for this case. Although they were ruled as not guilty, the media seemed to take this as a way to weed themselves in and kind of put their own opinions inside people's heads. They believe that Lindy Chamberlain was in fact the killer because nobody had ever died from a vicious attack of a dingo before. For them to believe that a dingo did it was really hard for some people. So they brought another expert in to view the jumpsuit, and he said that this was definitely foul play. The blood, where the blood has stained, clearly shows that someone had actually sliced the baby's neck, and that's how Azaria had died. Lastly, he noted that there was actually a little bit of a handprint on the baby's jumpsuit when he put the jumpsuit under ultraviolet lighting. So this caused a lot of upkick. A lot of people were talking about this, and then the Chamberlains went into trial a second time, and this would be a 10-day trial. Lindy at the time was pregnant, so I feel like they had just tried to start their lives fresh again, and this had just happened, so it would have been such a horrible experience. They went in the first day, and a lot of people speculated over the fact that Lindy, you know, always kept up her appearances. This couldn't have been someone who has been put through what she had just been put through. Something wrong had gone on there. That's what a lot of people in Australian society believed around the time of the trial. Also, a lot of witnesses in the trial room had said that she didn't show any remorse, she didn't show any emotion, she wasn't sad, she wasn't grieving. They said when they ruled out the cases, she was just kind of normal. You could tell that she didn't want to be there. Another defense had come out towards the Chamberlains saying that Lindy had actually sat in her car on the night of the disappearance, and she had slit Azaria's throat, blood went everywhere, and then she disposed of the body. And this actually came to be true, and I say true because, I mean, you'll find out why later. So the forensic team went into the car and they looked at the car, and they said that there was blood splatters in different places in the car, and this apparently had been confirmed to be fetal blood. Lindy was ruled as guilty, and she was actually sentenced to life in prison. This is really, really horrible and sad, and I feel like the media has a lot to do with the reason why Lindy was gone in prison. So as she was in jail, a lot of people were celebrating, a lot of people were happy at the fact that Lindy was going to jail, and a lot of rumours started to speculate. Now, rumours aren't really liable in a case like this, but I feel like because still a lot of rumours speculate today, I just need to say something. This is also in the movie A Cry in the Dark, which Meryl Streep had starred as Lindy Chamberlain. Definitely go check it out if you are interested in this case. I watched it and it was pretty like mind-blowing. You see everything through Lindy's perspective, and it really just does change you. A lot of the rumors were that she always dressed her baby in black, she was always dressed in black, you know, their church calls them to be crazy Christians, and they sacrificed their baby. Some people went on to say that Azaria meant sacrifice of God, which is untrue and just bizarre. Like, no, that's not what it means. I know, because that is my name, so see ya. And lastly, people said that she just was a very hard and difficult child to deal with. Lindy had had enough, and one day she just got sick of it, took a blade and just went and killed her. So Lindy had actually given birth to her fourth child, her daughter Kalia. It was said that she had been separated within an hour after giving birth with the baby. I feel like that's really, really sad, and that's not something that any mother should have to go through, let alone being in jail for a crime that you didn't commit. It would have been 3 years later that she was in jail that a matinee coat was actually found.
It was there, only 200 metres from where Azaria's bloodstained clothing was discovered, that a baby's matinee jacket was found.
Rock climber who was climbing Uluru, and he had fell off, and get this, the matinee coat was found 200 metres from the jumpsuit. Now, I don't know what that is in inches or whatever you guys do in America, but that's not fun. I don't know, like, wouldn't they want to put out a search party after they found the jumpsuit? If they did, then why didn't they find the matinee coat? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's just so bizarre. This had confirmed everything that Lindy said was true, and it actually did have a lot of blood on it. I'll insert a photo here. So this case had obviously reopened after the matinee coat was found, and they actually looked into the jumpsuit again. They could see that there were a lot of evidence that pointed towards the fact that Adiko did take the baby. They looked at the little handprint on the jumpsuit again, and they confirmed that it was just literally desert sand. How could somebody who is supposed to be an expert claim sand to be a handprint? So they also took a second look into the car and the blood splat, and they realized that it actually wasn't blood at all. It was sound deadening compound that was put in by the manufacturer. They went on to say that any other marks in the car that looked as though they were blood were actually sweetened milk or fruit drinks. So Lindy's conviction was finally cleared and she was let out of jail. She was compensated as well. She never confirmed the amount of compensation that the Northern Territory had given her, but it was said to be up to 1.3 million that had to be shared between her and Michael, and the children actually didn't get compensated for anything, despite the fact that they had lost their parents for around about 8 years because their parents were trying to fight for the justice of their daughter being taken by a dingo. Many years had passed after the Azaria Chamberlain case, but it still wasn't written on the inquest that Azaria was taken by a dingo. An inquest is basically like the end result, the death certificate. Please don't come for me if I'm not saying that right, but basically they just didn't have death by dingo on the inquest, and Lindy Chamberlain wanted this justified. She wanted this on there, and she had fought for it. Like she had fought a lot for this to happen, because people in the public and in society, and even still today, believe that Lindy Chamberlain had killed her own baby. This took 3 inquests, a trial, 2 appeals and a royal commission, and then finally in 2012, once again 32 years after the death of Azaria Chamberlain, it was finally official and it was finally put on the death certificate that it was death by a dingo. Getting to the end of this case, now I'm going to get onto my theory and I'm going to talk about what I think happened. You can kind of see I 110% believe that a dingo did it. Dingoes are wild animals. They're just like wolves, they're just like foxes, they'll hunt. Dingoes hunt in the night and they belong in packs of 12. When they don't finish their food or their prey that they've just caught, they bury their food and then they come back later and they eat the rest of it. And although it's a human and nobody has ever probably heard of a human being eaten by a dingo, this is a baby we're talking about. This is a tiny baby, and it just makes me so angry that people would go on to say that the parents did it. I also feel like at the time, and I'm not, this is just a theory, okay, don't come for me, but I feel like maybe the government at the time saw this as like something that would scare away tourists and something that would just completely turn people off from ever going into Northern Territory of Australia. I feel like this was something that they could even like try to milk their way into it being a murder case, or they just wanted to blame Lindy instead of it so that they didn't have to deal with killing off as many dingoes. I don't know, but I'm so glad that Lindy finally has a closure. Unfortunately, Michael Chamberlain, the father of Azaria, has passed away, so he's not with us anymore. But yeah, do you guys like that video? If you guys liked it, then you should definitely subscribe to my channel. This was a really interesting case for me to do. This is my favorite. This is my top of all of them because no human actually did this. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you guys in my next true crimes video. Until next time, I will see you guys soon.